Okay, so really what we have here, if we look back at this model, we have a super, it's super dense in some places. This is what we're talking about with 3D Studio too, is that it doesn't really even out the density, it just makes it super dense. Like this is much more dense than this. So that means that I have more places to sculpt and make things look cool than I did up here. So how do I fix that? And that's where Dynamesh comes in. And eventually we'll use the remesher to get it to a level that's usable. Okay, so Dynamesh is in the menu down here. So what I'm going to do is open up that little drop down inside of the sub menu of geometry. And I've got this, and I talked a little bit about this the other day. But what I'm looking for when I do this retop, it's going to retopologize everything so it's evenly using all the polygons across all the surfaces of the object, or as best as it can. And you're going to get some weird stuff that happens, but remember, this is not the perfect high res. This is the high res we're going to put scratches and stuff into so we can use it for our normals inside of Substance. So if you look at this as 473, I'm going to come over here. If I push Dynamesh right now, it's going to give me this error that says, do you want to freeze? And I'm going to say no, and then I'm going to come back and do it again. And then what I need to do is, this is still controllable. I can go up and down in this, and this is a really cool tool if you're using it later on for some sculpting stuff. But for right now, we just want this to be a separate beast. We want this to collapse down. So I'm going to say delete lower, and there we get a better look at our density. So it's all curved and stuff. Okay, so it's still 473. It didn't change the density. It's just not, now it's showing us all the polygon difference. Look how big they are here compared to there. Okay, so I'm going to push Dynamesh. Let me pull out a little bit here by pushing F. And I'll turn this off real quick. And that was Shift F again. And then I'm going to say Dynamesh at the default settings, 128. Okay, so what has happened? This looks like crap. It does. It absolutely does. And Dynamesh does a great job. The more polygons it has to work with, the better. And if we look at this, you'll see it kept our polygroups, which is nice. But you'll see that it's trying to make this all even polygroups the whole way around. So to do that, it needs to pull away. And when I set it to this low, that's what we get. So if the first time you do it, it doesn't look right, you have to undo it. You don't want to just add resolution to it, because it's not going to be based off of the resolution or the visual that you have now. It's going to be based off, it won't be based off the original, it'll be based off the new one. So I'm going to change this to, like, I don't know, let's say 1,000. Let's see what we get. Actually, I think it's 2,000, but I'll do 1,000 first. Turn this back on so we can see our density. And I'll even do this so we can see. Let's just do this. And then I'll say Dynamesh. Okay, so our density looks even all the way across. I've lost some resolution inside of these things here. And if we look up here, remember again, it's 176. So what that 176 means is that I am losing some resolution. And if I turn this back off, you'll see I lost a lot of resolution inside of this thing. So that's not what I want to do. So I'm going to back out. So I'm going to go to what I was saying before. I think it's $2,000. Works pretty good for this mesh. I'll set it to 2,000. Typed in 2,000. Pressed enter. It went to that thing. And then when I push Dynamesh, it'll stick. And there's a little bit closer. And we're a little bit higher. And it's still going to have a little bit of what I call muddiness to it. Like that. So if you want, we could come back into here and say 2,500. Now, let's see what we get here. It's still going to be a little bit muddy, but remember, we're not looking to make it perfect at that resolution. This is to make our normals. So it's going to give some of our stuff some pretty good resolution, and what we're looking for is something that is pretty dense completely all the way through, like that. So I'm going to start pulling out my pin here, and then Shift F to get out of this. The reason we want to do this is because now that it's even, I can smooth out what I want. Like this, or I can even turn it up higher. You really can go as far as you need to. It kind of gets in the way of the final resolution, but since this is your high res, it really doesn't matter how high it is. Let's try 3. And let's undo and try 3. Maybe it was 3 and I'm just forgetting. Yeah, it's a lot thicker a lot bigger up here, as you can see. One thing I did forget to do is the gems, but we're just going to live with them being round in my case. And there you go. Okay, it's going to have some eating inside of here, and the higher you go, the better you'll get. But for what we need it to be, it's fine. Okay, because all we're going to do is come in and like smooth some of this stuff out, or, you know, turn down our resolution of our smooth here like this. And it smooths out those edges for us. We don't really mind if it's a little bit, stuff like that. Then we can use different brushes to get different results. Okay, the other thing is if I go to front and I didn't push X, so my life is, yeah, now it's even. So in some of these places where I'm doing this, it'll do it the same on both sides, which is nice. So that's good. Another thing I could show you real quick is that what we've done by pushing X is we've done inside of deformation, and so transformation. So like I said before, if you want to look at the menu, you can run up here, but it's really one of those menu systems that if you roll off by accident, it disappears. So I like to throw it somewhere to look at. So in this case, it throws it in this side. I could drag it by clicking it over here, and that's what I'll probably do. But it doesn't matter. It's wherever you're used to looking at it. When I push X, it turns on active symmetry, and by default, it goes to the X modifier, the X direction. If I knew, let me back up here. Okay. If I knew that I wanted to do the back and the front at the same time, I would say Z. So I turn on my Z, and I should be going here and there and right and left. So I can have them both on. I can do all four of them like we do in Max. So let me move this over, and then I'll smooth this side here. Let me turn this up a little bit. Like that. And if you want to keep going up higher, for your first model, that's fine. You're going to find more efficient ways as you start working in ZBrush. I'm more worried about you getting used to working with the tools and figuring out parts of it rather than making it perfect. This is your first chance in the ZBrush, and you just learned Max, so it's totally understandable some of this stuff is going to be rough. Now your next class, not in this, but the next VGA 2, yeah, I'd really be a little bit more careful. Okay, so there you go. So I smoothed that out, and look, it smoothed both sides, and if I turn it over, it smoothed all the way around the whole thing because I have my X on too. Okay, so I can do this and get rid of that edge there if I want, or I could turn a different brush on. So if I come into my brushes, some of them that I like are Transform, Trim Dynamic, which is a flat brush, which will do things like this, flatten it out. I have it pretty high up there, but I could take it and just do something like that if I wanted, or I could take it up here. So if you want to have a straight line in ZBrush, the way you do it is a little bit different. You come into the brush controls, and this is what I say about ZBrush having so many things that are just stacked on top of itself. I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to come over here. It says, actually it's not even brush, it's stroke. So I click on stroke and I drag it over here. If I miss a little bit, it's going to throw it to the other side like that. So just be prepared. Don't worry about it. Just throw it back over here if this is where you want it. And you're going to have this with my stroke on. You're going to see this thing says Lazy Mouse. Lazy Mouse allows me to turn it on and off, and L is the shortcut for it. But by default, Lazy Mouse radius is 1, so it's hard to see a difference. So what I'm going to do is turn it up to 20 or something, and you can see now it's giving me a line behind it. It makes it a lot easier to draw a straight line when you can see that line. And then I would come in and smooth it. And Lazy Mouse is brush dependent, so as I change brushes, it would not be the same Lazy Mouse. So it's not like it just turns it on. Kind of like Photoshop that way, except it doesn't have Lazy Mouse. I wish it did. It probably will. Okay. So After you do that, it's just sculpt away.
So that's what we'll do next in the next video. I'll speed it up so we don't have to watch every second of it.